baby. Tomorrow I'll take our daughter to school. Will you wear black stockings and wait for me at the kindergarten? In the 7th year of my marriage to Song Huanyan, I found chat records with our daughter's kindergarten teacher on his computer, in front of others. He was the perfect husband. He personally picked up and dropped off our daughter every day, never entrusting it to anyone else. We are a Mod L family, loving and devoted to one another. That day, he smiled as he discussed with me the matter of enrolling our daughter in piano lessons. I looked at him quietly. Let's get a divorce. Song Huanyan froze. Silence flowed between us. It was only when our daughter, in her room, burst into clear, bright laughter at the television that the suffocating atmosphere was finally broken. Song Huanyan said with a smile, "Wife, that joke isn't funny at all. You nearly scared me to death." I said nothing. He casually tidied up the books and toys his daughter had tossed onto the sofa. Putting them neatly away in the cabinet was a rare man who actually did housework. And he never tolerated the house being left dirty and messy until the maid came to clean it up. I couldn't find a single fault with him, I thought, hugging a pink Hello Kitty in a rather comica way. He brought up that suggestion again as if nothing had happened. Teacher Chiao is a professional, and it's about time our daughter learned an instrument. I cut him off. No. Song Huanyan looked a little surprised and said, "I'll pick her up and drop her off every day. I won't be a burden to you." I looked into his eyes and repeated, "No." Song Huanyan's movements faltered. A shadow fell across his eyes. Then in the next second he smiled again and said, "All right. I'll do whatever my wife says." That night, after our daughter turned 5, she stopped sleeping in the same bed with us. So independent. She would mutter that she wanted to give D and Mom some space to be together. Back then, Song Huanyan laughed heartily and kissed her, saying, "You're the most considerate toward Daddy." Our daughter giggled from the kiss. Now, as I stand in front of the mirror applying toner and lotion, I still feel a trace of days when my fingertips brush over the fine lines at the corners of my eyes. Song Huanyan wrapped his arms around me from behind, his fingers trailing down in a suggestive way. Even if my wife gets wrinkles, she'll still be this beautiful. I inconspicuously pulled my collar closed and said, "Let's go to bed early." Song Huanyan stayed where he was, unmoving, somewhat puzzled by my attitude. I added, "We still have to get up early tomorrow to take Yuan Yuan. Yuan Yuan is my daughter's nickname. She's in the final year of kindergarten now, and Song Huanyan has to drop her off and pick her up every day." He said quickly. "All right." He turned me around somewhat firmly and pressed a kiss to my forehead. "I'll love you forever, honey." After saying that, he made an excuse to go to the bathroom and left, and I knew he had gone to coax another woman to sleep. A true master of time management. Next day, I went to attend a wine tasting held by the wealthy wives. Mrs. Yuan spotted me from afar and waved at me with a beaming smile. At someone like Song Huanyan's level, connections mattered more than anything else. And Mrs. Yuan happened to be the wife of Song Huanyan's superior. She slid the glass in her hand over to me and said, "Shao Xing, I think today's vintage is pretty good. Go pour me some. Would you?" I said, "You can ask the waiter to do it yourself." The moment I said those words, the women gathered around Mrs. Yuan all froze. There was a time when I racked my brains just to fit into this circle. I was cautious to a fault, hoping to lend a hand to Song Huanyan's career, to the point of seeming almost neurotic, always wearing a habitual smile. Soon someone stepped in to smooth things over. and the matter was brushed aside. Mrs. Yuan had been looking at me with a probing gaze all this while. Things were no longer as they had been. Song Huainian was now her husband's trusted right hand. And she too was unwilling to make things ugly with me. She brought up the piano class again. Mr. Song mentioned it to me the other day. There's a rather good piano class, she said. He's truly astute and perceptive. Knowing that my son happened to be learning an instrument, he even took the initiative to recommend it to my husband. Speaking of which, I still haven't thanked you both. I nearly laughed out loud. I still remembered the few voice messages I had heard in his chat history. You've introduced so many acquaintances when your wife find out, baby. That's what makes it exciting. How annoying. You have to reward me. Tomorrow I'll take my daughter to school, and you can come see me in black stockings. Okay. Let's meet at the old place, the alley behind the kindergarten. The words that followed were too filthy. They were enough to dirty my ears. What kind of thrill could it be that, after being rejected by me, Song Huaiyan would then recommend me to Madame Yuan, insisting on doing this favor for his lover? With a faint smile, I said in a light, deft tone, you mean the one even Yuan refuses to go to? That's a place privately run by a kindergarten teacher, with a rather mixed bag of students, for families like ours. It's not as if we can't find a better private tutor. Song Huainian probably thought you liked letting the child interact more with different kinds of people and broaden her horizons. Mrs. Yuan's face darkened in an instant, a look of shock and anger flickering uncertainly across it. I pretended not to see it, turned around to find a server, and went off to enjoy that rather fine vintage of wine. However, though I did not go looking for the mountain ca. Me looking for me, a woman with a dashing air, her brows sharp and her eyes bright as stars, stood opposite me and smiled as she held out her hand. Your jo sway. It had been so long since anyone had called me by any name other than Mrs. Song. At the end of the wine tasting, Song Huainan came to pick me up. He was tall and handsome, leaning against the car door and smoking. The moment he saw me, he immediately put it out, then opened the car door for me with a smiling expression. Mrs. Yuan, upon seeing him, said coolly to the person beside her, just look at that, men and women really are different. When they both reach middle age, men become steady and shrewd, and with maturity comes even more charm. But women, time takes its toll on beauty, and they don't even seem as quick-minded as they were when they were young. Anyone feels entitled to sweet-talk them a few times. Song Huainian took it as a compliment and smiled. I'm sure in Mr. Yuan's eyes Mrs. Yuan is also beautiful beyond compare. He grew even more enthusiastic in playing the devoted husband. Anne, gripping my hand, led me into the car. It was rush hour, and the road was clogged for a long time. By the time we got home, Yuan was already asleep. The house was utterly silent, pitch black. Song Huainian leaned close to me affectionately, trying to help me into the bedroom. In a low voice, he called me honey. The next second, I vomited all over his expensive suit. He switched on the light in shock and fury, unable to hold back a shout. Jo sway. How much have you had to drink? I lifted my head and said, you've got a smell on you. Song Huainian went rigid all over, under the blinding white light. He had nowhere to hide. Every expression on his face was laid bare. I washed up without changing expression, through the bathroom door. His voice came through indistinctly. It should be, I had a female client this afternoon. and she wore way too much perfume. Are you all right? I didn't answer, pretending to be drunk, and went to sleep early. When I woke up, Song Huainian was in the kitchen making breakfast. When we first came to this city to make a life for ourselves, he was a man of talent who never found the recognition he deserved. Stubborn to the core, he said to give up even after running headlong into wall after wall, and wouldn't take a small company job just to get by. I worked 2 jobs alone to pay the utilities and rent. So busy I hardly had time to touch the ground. One day, after skipping breakfast, I collapsed by the roadside from stomach cramps and low blood sugar. Song Huainian stood guard by my hospital bed with red-rimmed eyes, repeating his apologies over and over. Back then, I thought that for his sake, for our future, everything was worth it. Later, making breakfast for me became his habit. In his, all I could see were one breakfast dish after another, along with photos of our daughter. A lot of people envied me. Men usually turn bad once they have money, and someone like Song Huainian was rare. You'd better hold on to him. They always said that, while she was lost in thought. Song Huainian had aura. Audie pushed the door open and come in. Wife. Dinner's ready. He was wearing an apron, a spatula in his hand, his expression gentle. The aroma of eggs and scallions drifted in from outside the door. I looked at him and said it again. Song Huayan. Let's get a divorce. His brows furrowed. The N relaxed, with a bitter laugh. He said, "It's just because I didn't make the porridge you like. Today's menu was chosen by the little princess. How would I dare go against that?" My daughter, Yuan, poked her head through the crack in the door, her mouth greasy with oil, and said innocently, "I want egg pancakes." Song Huainian smiled and picked her up in his arms. Just then, the phone rang. After Song Huainian answered it, his expression gradually grew tense. I had already anticipated this, and stepped forward to take Yuan from him. After hanging up the phone, he looked at me with some suspicion. My boss gave me a good scolding and told me to work overtime today to deal with the project. Honey, didn't you hear Mrs. Yuan mention it yesterday? I stayed silent, thinking that it was probably her whispering in his ear. Song Huainian had gone off to work overtime, and it was my turn to pick up Yuan from school. We had always hoped Yuan would receive the best education. So when we were choosing a kindergarten back then, we had done quite a bit of homework. The tuition was steep, and the children who could study here all came from families either wealthy or influential. I thought most teachers here ought to know their place and keep proper boundaries. From beyond the railing, I saw a female teacher feeding Yuan some pastry. It was the kind of street snack food sold at a roadside stall, packed in a red plastic bag, coated in bright, vivid food coloring. Yuan rarely got to see this kind of food, and her eyes lit up. The female teacher was petite, a little younger than I had imagined, with rosy cheeks LL of collagen, willow-like brows, and big eyes. She wore a light-colored dress that looked plain enough, but the collar hung loosely, occasionally revealing a patch of fair skin. When she faced children, she seemed to radiate a gentle aura, as if she were as innocent as they were. It was very appealing. Holding the pastry, she asked Yuan, "Who is your favorite person?" With a bright, round voice, she said, "My favorite is teacher." I thought, she must be Joik, Song Huainian's precious treasure. I watched for a while and saw that Joik herself took a bite too. And I knew in my heart that Yuan had no history of allergies and wasn't delicate. So I only took the photos. Then carried my bag to find the dean. The dean recognized me and welcomed me into his office with a beaming smile. I took out the photos and showed them to him. If a teacher feeds her something without informing the parents, can you guarantee food safety? And if it causes problems, will your school take responsibility? The dean looked as if facing a formidable enemy. Beads of sweat forming as he hurriedly made a phone call. I heard him scolding loudly. Teacher Chiao, you've caused enough trouble since you started working here. If someone hadn't pleaded for you, you'd have been fired long ago. A little while later, Joey came over with Yuan. Her eyes were red-rimmed. A pitiful sight to behold. Mom. Yuan cheered and threw herself into my arms. Not even glancing at Joko once, she kept her head bowed. Looking utterly dispirited, the dean stood to the side. Exasperated beyond words. Why aren't you apologizing to Mrs. Song already? Joko looked reluctant and still wanted to argue. Mrs. Song, I asked Mr. Song about it before. Yuan has no history of allergies. I glanced at her. Teacher Chiao has the students' welfare at heart. It seems you often come to my husband to ask about things. Joey's face instantly went pale. It wasn't until dinner time that Song Huanyan finally came back. Worn out. From the road. His expression was calm as he sat at the dining table and picked away all the broccoli that Yuan didn't like to eat. I lifted my eyes to him and said, "Don't encourage her picky eating habit." Song Huanyan smiled. Pretending it was nothing. I heard you had a conflict with the kindergarten teacher today. I let out a soft laugh. Your threshold for what counts as a conflict is way too low. At most. I merely made a few suggestions to the principal. After a pause, I set down my chopsticks and stared at him. Do you think I went too far? Song Huanyan averted his gaze and immediately said, "How could that be?" I laughed heartily. I knew you support me the most. A few days later, I saw Jiang Xingfa's recruitment post in my. She was one of the few women in this circle I knew who had started her own business and didn't rely on her husband. She was still dressed with that sharp, capable flair. When she took my resume, she looked genuinely surprised. I thought you were a housewife. I smiled and said nothing. She looked at the resume and was even more surprised. Graduated from a university's Department of Finance. Your credentials are no worse than your husband's. Wasn't that the truth? We graduated together. And for the sake of his dream, I came here with him. In the countless days and nights that followed, I was the one who stayed by his side to work, creating one glory after another. Only after I gave birth to Yuan did he rise steadily through the ranks. And people be gone to think I was the one living a life of leisure. Jiangxing had many doubts. We're still in the startup stage. What I need is a partner who can stick with me through it all. Not a wealthy lady acting on a whim. I said, I'm serious. I won't let you down. After a long moment of thought, she still took my hand. Welcome aboard. 08. Returning to the workplace. There was so much I had to readjust to. Song Huanyan nearly blew up my phone, urging me to attend his company's dinner gathering tonight. He said his boss seemed to have it out for him lately, and he wanted me to feel out Mrs. Yuan's intentions. I didn't reply, and I didn't answer the calls either. After a long, fulfilling day at work, by the time I got home that night, it was already deep into the night. Song Huanyan was sitting in the living room waiting for me, his face dark with anger. With me gone, maintaining the image of a devoted husband must have been a difficult performance for him. Where have you been? He sprang up and demanded. What kind of wife behaves like this? I took off my shoes in the entryway and said lazily. I went to an interview. What? I found a job. I'll be very busy from now on. So please don't call me randomly while I'm at work. And don't arrange my activities without warning. His face twisted. What do you mean by that? Isn't the money I give you usually enough? Around us. Have you ever seen any wife go out to work and slap her husband in the face like this? I wanted to remind him that if I hadn't gone out to work and support the family back then, there would be no today for him, but after thinking it over, I still held my tongue. At this point, all he could see was the present, to a successful man. A wife and daughter were like the expensive TCH on his wrist, well cared for. Something to be flaunted at every moment. He was like a beast in a rage, pacing back and forth through the living room, hurling fierce accusations at me. I've always respected you. And I took the initiative to do the housework. Why are you still not satisfied? There's no way you could possibly adapt to life in the workplace now. And even if we take 10,000 steps back, who would take care of Yuan? I was very calm as I asked sincerely. Why is it that just because you take Yuan to and from kindergarten, everyone praises you as a good man, while if I go out to work and earn money, I'm no longer a good woman? Song Huanyan. You're being utterly unreasonable, enraged to the point of fury. He said. You don't know how lucky you are. With that, he snatched up his coat and stormed out the door. I followed right after him. He must have mistaken my meaning for wanting to stop him, because he came to a halt at the doorway and rambled on. I've already been good enough to you. The next second, there was a loud bang behind him. I had already shut the door and kindly locked it. Song Huanyan's furious cursing came through, but I pretended not to hear it and went about washing up and going to bed. Anyway, it wasn't as though he had nowhere else to go. And sure, Teacher Chiao is such a warm-hearted person that she'll take good care of my husband. Song Huanyan hadn't come home for many days. I didn't mind. Every day I went to work and took care of Yuan. When I was too busy to manage, I would ask Auntie to pick her up and drop her off. Look, this was clearly something anyone could do. Everything at work was going smoothly. Over the years, although I hadn't been working, being by Song Huaini, inside and absorbing it all by constant exposure had kept me sensitive to business trends. Back in school, I was already more capable than he was. Jiangxing was very happy and praised me. Why didn't you come earlier? I'm really so grateful to you. I smiled and said. If you really want to thank me, do me a favor, Jiangxing said. Just say the word. I said. Introduce me to a divorce lawyer. After speaking with the lawyer, I made time to personally pick Yuan up from kindergarten, and so I saw Joik. Oh, again. She was brimming with pride and delight. Her cheeks flushed with a rosy glow, with feigned surprise. She asked me, Mrs. Song, are you the one picking up Yuan again today? Where has Mr. Song gone? I smiled at her good-naturedly and said, I'm not sure. Could it be that Teacher Chiao knows? The way she instinctively tried to cover her mouth looked utterly foolish. That same day, Song Huanyan came home. He brought a large bouquet of chamomile, still beaded with fresh droplets of water, and handed it to me with a smiling face. I've come to apologize to you. I felt a little dazzled. I remember that many years ago, when we were still crammed into a tiny, damp rental room for both eating and sleeping. On Valentine's Day he was determined to buy me a bouquet of flowers no matter what. But when we got to the flower shop, he stood between the shelves, one moment dismissing any bouquet as too solemn, the next finding another withered and limp. I knew his pockets were empty. that he was all bluster and no substance. Yet I still took the bouquet of chamomile he had painstakingly chosen with delight. Now, I can smile as I push this bouquet away and say, why aren't they roses? A hint of confusion appeared on Song Huainian's face. I thought you liked it. Back then, I was merciless. That was because you were too poor to afford anything else. Song Huainian stood there in embarrassment. I stopped there, opened the front door, and said still, welcome home, right? After making up. Men are always the most eager. The next day, a bouquet of roses, fresh and dewy, appeared by my bedside. For the next few days, he got off work early and came home, had Auntie pick up and drop off Yuan, and took me out for candlelit dinners. He was always intoxicated by the tender atmosphere he had created himself, and I was only too happy to humor him with a few perfunctory words. He would pull out my chair, cut up my steak, and generously tip the waiter, asking him to change the restaurant music to my favorite violin piece. We looked like a glamorous, well-matched couple, until his phone rang. Without changing expression, he hung up. The other side called again, and he hung up on CE more. After a few rounds back and forth, even Mr. Perfect could no longer keep his expression in check. He said, sorry, honey. It seems like it's an urgent matter from work. I flipped his phone face down onto the table and held down the power button hard until it shut off. A rainbow-colored, soap bubble smile spread across my face. If you're keeping me company for dinner, you're not allowed to think about anyone else, not even your boss. Song Huainian smiled helplessly. Yes, Your Highness. My great princess. It didn't matter. I wasn't in a hurry. And Song Huainian wasn't in a hurry either, naturally. Someone else would be. I thoroughly enjoyed that meal, laughing the whole time, as though I had gone back to the way things used to be. He was encouraged by my attitude, and even after we got home he still held me tightly around the waist. But I let go of him with T mercy, and said with a coy smile, I'm sleeping with Yuan tonight. I promised to tell her a bedtime story, even after I shut the door to Yuan's bedroom. I could still feel his gaze lingering on me. Men are probably all a little base by nature. The things they can't have always smell sweeter. Yuan threw herself into my arms and blinked up at me, saying, Mommy, you and Daddy came back from your date looking so happy. I fell silent for a moment, then asked her, Yuan, if Daddy and Mommy separate, who would you want to live with? When I gave birth to Yuan, I had nearly gone through the gates of hell. Back then, Song Huaiyan had just been promoted. His handsome face, outstanding abilities, and bright future all only made him more captivating. And my health was poor. My pregnancy symptoms were severe, leaving me swollen and haggard. He always looked troubled. Honey, everyone at this dinner will be bringing their wives. It's all right. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. I'll explain to my superior. I was fiercely proud and not used to being the kind of weak person who needed looking after. Standing among those meticulously dressed wives, I felt like a monster from outer space. They said Mr. Song truly loves you. Back then, I didn't realize that by putting him on a pedestal, I was really trampling on myself. Men are so cunning. Because I hadn't rested well during pregnancy, my labor was extremely difficult, but fortuna tell, why? I made it through. Heaven granted me such a lovely, sensible daughter. Yuan is an independent individual, capable of thinking for herself. She will always come first in my life. But I should not selfishly strip her of the right to choose. Mom, you're crying. She sat up and cupped my face in her hands, saying, I wiped away my tears in a fluster. Tilting her head, she asked, Aren't you happy being with Daddy? After a moment of silence, I gave a slight nod. Then I'll stay with Mommy, anyway. Daddy has Teacher Chow him. And Teacher Chow loves chatting with Daddy so much that even Yuan can't get a word in. My heart turned bitter. How could they do this right in front of Yuan? I patted her head and said softly, Yuan. How about we change kindergartens tomorrow? Remember to say goodbye to the kindergarten teachers. Teacher Chiao has been so nice to you. You must. Absolutely must say goodbye to her. Okay. Joey got in touch with me earlier than I had imagined. We agreed to meet at a cafe. It was obviously more suited to a young girl like her Instagram style. With pop songs playing in the background and plenty of people coming and going. The coffee beans were ordinary, without the slightest hint of aroma. I took one sniff, then set the cup down. A look of concealed arrogance and ambition flickered across Chow Yike's face. At that moment, she spoke up. Mrs. Song, are you not used to it? Mr. Song is very fond of the coffee from this place. I set my phone on the table and looked at her with interest. Teacher Chiao, you're certainly very dedicated, not only taking care of Yuan, but even remembering my husband's preferences so clearly. I wonder, are you this familiar with Ev? Airy child's father. Chow Yike's face flushed red and then pale. Mrs. Song, I only came to discuss Yuan with you. There's no need for you to humiliate me like this. I nodded. I'm sorry. Please go on. She steadied her breathing and said, I heard from Yuan that you're planning to change kindergartens. Are you thinking of moving? I didn't answer directly. Why do you ask? Chow Yike said. Yuan has been doing very well in class. I think transferring her so suddenly would be very irresponsible to the child. Seeing that I still remained unmoved, she went on. I also heard that recently you even left Yuan alone at home to go out and work. In fact, Mr. Song has already treated you well enough. As a full-time wife like you, with no real pressure in life at all. Why can't you just put a little more thought into the child? I gently cut her off. You're very envious, aren't you? She fell silent at once. Idiot. I thought to myself. I went on. When Song Huanyan didn't answer your call, you were scared, weren't you? After all, once Yuan transferred schools, the connection between you two was completely severed. She tried to deny it. I didn't. I let out something like a sigh and said, girls like you, I've seen plenty. You've got ambition. And you're willing to work for it. You think your looks are the best weapon there is. That you can use a man to climb the social ladder. But you need a decent excuse. So you call it love. You even imagine you're here to save those rich men's souls, Teacher Chow. You're truly cheap and disgusting. Her expression changed completely. She looked at me as if I were her father's murderer. You already know. She ground out through clenched teeth. Such a beautiful, youthful face had turned fierce and twisted in that moment. You don't understand anything. Mr. Song treats me differently. He values me very much. I'll show you what it means to be valued. I rolled up my sleeves, then took the branded watch off my wrist at an unhurried pace and set it on the table. Then came the luxury car keys, the jade necklace, the diamond ring, the black card, and at last, I pointed to myself. I said, he gives me on 100,000 yuan a month for pocket money. For me to spend however I like. Love is nothing but empty talk. Only a man who's willing to spend money on you is the real thing. Xiao Yike. You're a woman he can sleep with without spending a single penny. Tell me. Who's the cheaper one? Xiao Yike was enraged and shoved everything on the table away in one sweep. She burst into crazed laughter at me. You think he hasn't spent money on me? He felt sorry that I had such a long commute. So he's already bought me 2 cars. Jewelry. 2 every Valentine's Day. He gives you a set and he gives me one too, whether it's money or love. He's given me both. Given them to me, Mrs. Song. If I were you, I wouldn't be able to smile either. I really couldn't smile. I lowered my eyes and sat there, still in my seat. It's just as well that you know, she said, looking at me with contempt. I'm prettier and younger than you. And I'm more qualified to be Mrs. Song. Xiao Yike strode out of the cafe like a victorious rooster. I watched her figure outside the shop window and opened the phone I had kept pressed shut. The screen showed that the call was still connected. I said, Lawyer Dang. The assets he transferred should be these. I'll arrange for someone to keep a close eye on her later. As for the real estate situation, it should be clear very soon. I bet Joey wouldn't dare take the initiative to tell Song Huanyan about this. After all, she would already be thrown into confusion just because Song Huanyan didn't answer the phone and because of a few words from Yuan Street. Ill. This performance had already reached its final act. I asked him one last time. Let's get a divorce. Song Huanyan, frowning. He still tried to keep up the pretense of peace. Say that kind of joke again, and I'll really be angry. I sighed and said, Then I'll take Yuan today. I drove Yuan to the high-speed rail station, where her maternal grandmother was already waiting. I took a long leave and brought Yuan to Yunnan for a trip. The divorce complaint should have arrived in Song Huanyan's hands that very same day. His calls came one after another. Going fro. Have you lost your mind? To I'm sorry. Darling. Please forgive me. I found it annoying. So I changed my SIM card. I have entrusted all matters to Lawyer Dang. From this point on, Song Huanyan and I will not speak without a lawyer present. On the 12th day in Yunnan, Yuan asked me, Mommy, when are we going home? I asked softly. Is Yuan not having fun? I am, she said, puffing out her cheeks and holding out her arms for me to look at. But I've gotten all tanned. I burst out laughing. At this moment, Attorney Dang's call finally came through. He said, the other side has retained a lawyer. They formally contacted me today. Mrs. Song, we can sit down and talk now. After hanging up, I said to Yuan, we can go back now. I thought that if time were turned back 7 years, Song Huanyan and I would probably never have imagined that one day we would be sitting together like this. Both lawyers were already in place. The moment Song Huanyan saw me, he immediately stood up. He seemed to have withered quite a bit, unshaven, disheveled, with not a trace left of his former dashing elegance. By comparison, I was impeccably dressed and radiant. He looked at me, his hands and feet trembling. Joe Sway. How can you be so ruthless? You knew long ago that I was cheating on you, looking for a job, investigating the assets. Every step was all part of your setup. I said, same here. Attorney Dang pushed the agreement over. My client's demands are custody of the daughter, as well as half of the marital assets. He took out stack after stack of evidence, including the house and car you purchased for Ms. Chow. All of it counts as joint marital property. Song Huanyan said, you can have all of that, but I will never divorce her. We've been married for 7 years. You know better than anyone how good I've been to you. We have a child too. What is Yuan supposed to do? Have you ever thought about that? I looked at him with great interest. When you were cheating, did you ever think about Yuan? Pain flashed across Song Huanyan's face. Zhou Sui. Can we talk in private? You had the nerve to do it, but not the nerve to let others know. I asked him word by word. How do you even have the face to bring up Yuan? Fooling around with the kindergarten teacher in front of our daughter, did you think that was exciting? Why didn't you think of today back then? He slammed the table hard and roared. It was all her seducing me. That slut used Yuan as an excuse to get close to me. I have no feelings for her at all. And she only loves my money. Zhou Sui. You are my one and only lawful wife. I looked at him as if he were a stranger. I must have been blind. I said with a sigh, how did I ever end up with you in the first place? He must have remembered the hard days we had struggled through together as well, and clenched his teeth tightly. I won't divorce you. He growled. You're just a housewife who's only just started working. My income and social standing are all higher than yours. If you take this to court, Yuan may not even be awarded to you. Then let's wait and see. There is no wall in the world that wind cannot pass through. Looking back now, I realize with a start how self-important, chauvinistic, and theatrically narcissistic Song Huanyan was. In the 7th year of our marriage, when I saw the chat records between him and Chi Yike on his computer, I nearly fainted on the spot. The man everyone regarded as a model husband had, in fact, long since been carrying on an affair behind the scenes. Xiao Yike said. You're such a responsible man, you even personally drop off and pick up the kids. I'm so envious that your Fei can be so carefree. You support them. You hold this family together incredible. Mr. Song. Being with you makes me feel so safe. At first it was only a casual expression of concern, but it gradually developed into long, endless conversations. Then, Joey could say that the light at her home had broken, that the night was so dark, that it was thundering outside, and beg Mr. Song to stay with her. From then on, things spiraled out of control. They kissed around the corner of the kindergarten, held hands under the table while taking Roundy out to eat, and lingered cheek in the children's restroom. He called her. After Roundy, you're my second little princess. Xiao Yike could send him a voice message, cooing in a sweet, coy voice. Then are you my sugar daddy? He made an excuse of being away on business and took Joey to travel across the ocean, leaving his computer at home, which was how I discovered everything. At that moment, I really wanted to kill them, but Yuan, my Yuan, what could I use to stand against him? How was I supposed to protect my child? It was because she gave me a push that I've been able to make it to where I am today. I'm definitely getting this divorce. I'm taking Yuan and leaving this disgusting home. An evil person should be left to another evil person to deal with. I recorded the conversation and sent it to Chia. Oh yike. A girl as ambitious as she was, how could she ever tolerate her dream of becoming Mrs. Song shattered? How could she ever accept being cast aside by Song Huayan as if she were nothing but worn-out trash? As expected, that very day she stormed into Song Huayan's company. She even brought along a pregnancy certificate, just as I'd expected. Stupid. Indeed, his superior was furious, and he lost his job just like that. I bundled their chat logs and sent them to Song Huanyan, kindly reminding that I could post them online at any time. On the 15th day, we sat down again in the law firm. More than his family, what he feared losing most was his own reputation. I knew that. To the outside world, He had already begun claiming that I was lazy and gluttonous, while he and Joey were the ones in true love, hoping to win the sympathy of certain men and land himself another high-paying job. I didn't care. I no longer had the slightest attachment to his circle. Do you really have to take it this far? He asked me the question in unwilling resentment. Not just that. I handed over the redrafted contract. From now on, I want you to leave with nothing. He shot to his feet. That's outrageous. You can also choose not to agree. I idly toyed with my long, rhinestone-studded nails. After marrying Song Huayan, it had been a long time since I'd worn such an ostentatious style. Then don't expect to find a decent job. Song Huayan sank down in defeat. In the end, he signed the Devo RCE agreement. Our divorce still stirred up quite a stir in the social circle. Many wives called me and said, "You're being foolish. Men like to have fun outside. What can you do about it? As long as the legitimate wife is you, just enjoy yourself." I replied with a blank expression. Then put on an air of helplessness. He and that teacher are the real thing. They're always doing that sort of thing in the kindergarten. I'm afraid it'll dirty Yuan's eyes. So, I had no choice but to divorce him. Children are the final bottom line for all mothers. And the other side immediately joined me in cursing him out. I immediately played the sympathy card. I'm a divorced single mother now. And I still have to work hard every day to make money. Oh. Right, I wore K at Jiangxing's company. I know your family has been doing this kind of business lately. Please be kind and help me. Jiangxing's company was not large. The kinds of business it could handle just happened to fall within the scope these madams could decide for themselves. And thanks to Song Huayan's painstaking efforts in the past, these connections were of great use to me. I had the ability. I only lacked the opportunity. In less than 2 years, everyone only knew that I was a fine gun under Jiangxing's command, capable, good at business, and that my name was Zhou Sui. Very few people ever mention anymore that I was once Mrs. Song. Song Huayan called me again. His tone as arrogant as ever. I heard you've been going around playing the victim. I told you long ago that a homemaker like you couldn't adapt to the workplace. Come back now, and I'll still be willing to take you in. I said. None of your damn business. He was shocked. How did you become so vulgar? Zhou Sui. Think this through. A divorced woman like you isn't going to find anyone better than me. What man wouldn't mind? I said. What the hell is it to them? After saying that, I hung up the phone. He was nothing more than a man putting on airs. In truth, after being fired by his previous company, many people were still wary of the scandals surrounding him, and his job search had been fraught with setbacks. The network he had painstakingly built over so many years had, in the end, all been used to make my wedding dress for me. How could he not hate me? And there was the insatiably greedy Joey Koo. She gave birth to a boy. And at last, through her son, she secured the status she had long dreamed of as Mrs. Song. It was a pity that Mr. Song had already left the marriage with nothing but the clothes on his back. Not only had she failed to make a leap in social class, but her reputation had also been thoroughly ruined. It was said that these days she lived in constant fear and suspicion. At the slightest approach of any woman to Song Huayan, she would suspect him of cheating and keep him under a tight watch. After they got together, they grew to loathe each other, their conflicts piling up one after another. And they fought every few days. Song Huayan had never known H's low points. In the past, he had managed to climb back up entirely on my support. I was very curious, relying on Xiao Yike. Just how far could he get? In the 4th year after the divorce, Jiangxing's company had grown increasingly large. I met Song Huanyan again in the company. We were the client side. He stepped in at the same time as the competitor. And when he clearly saw me in the office, it was as if he'd been struck by lightning. He had changed a lot. His suit didn't fit him well anymore. The seams were already fraying. There was a thin stubble on his chin. And he kept hunching his back. The ingratiating smile on his face had already frozen stiff. Wasn't this supposed to be the director's office? He muttered, "Why are you sitting here?" I smiled at him and pointed toward the door with my pen. "You can't even check the basic information of the company you're supposed to be working with. Please see yourself out." Only then did he seem to wake from a dream. Hurriedly thrusting the proposal materials toward me. "Wait. At least look at our plan." I called to the assistant at the door. "Get security." He looked at me in disbelief. "You don't feel even a shred of old affection." "We never had any old affection," I said. "I'm no longer your wife. No longer the tool you use to show off. I'm your client now. So please, get out of my office." He left in a daze, glancing back again and again before he went. "Joe Sway," he said, standing by the door. "Only now do I realize how much you gave me before. I owe you an apology. I was magnanimous about it. It's no longer needed." Later, I heard that after he went back, he had a huge fight with Joik. The two of them were in a car at the time. And because they fought over the steering wheel, they got into a fairly serious accident. I didn't care whether he was all right or not. By now, Yuan had almost forgotten him. After all, once Joey Ku gave birth to the child, he was strictly forbidden to come see Yuan, and he made no resistance. Yuan and I were both forgetting the past little by little, and walking toward a new future. As for his apology, it was useless. I didn't want to hear it. Some wounds are irreversible. The only one who can help you stand back up is yourself.